And then again, it might. Oh my God! It's noon here on the East Coast, 9 on the West Coast, and this is news that you can use from YAA with me, Ray, and today we got Justice filling in for my son, who's last picture I saw hanging out on a beach in Portugal.
Rough life. It's gotta be a rough life.
Well, it took him a long time to get to this point so that he could actually take some time. So,
I'm actually surprised he went. I'm surprised
um,
knowing Zach, so I'm happy he did.
I am surprised that he went as well. And I gave up arguing with him that he needed to find more balance in his life uh, rather than just YAA. And I am ever so thankful that at least for a week or 8 days, whatever it's going to be, that hopefully he's not thinking about us. And if he is, then he needs to get his head examined.
Yeah.
But that could be a story for another show. Today, if it's okay with you, I thought, and somewhere I have, and if I'm going to see if I can remember how to share my screen, Justice, so that we can pull up the latest numbers in regards to the chip shortage. So I go here, I hit share screen, I click on that screen, and then I'm going to go up here and pull up. Look at this, the latest numbers on microchip shortage, and the cuts surge past 2 million vehicles. Last week, if you remember correctly, and if I remember correctly, and God knows I'm so old I don't often remember correctly, last week was a great week. I think globally we only lost about 15,000 vehicles to the chip shortage issues.
Only.
Oh, well, yeah. But that was a great week.
Yeah.
And we had the information from Daimler and BMW, at least in Europe, that their plants were running at capacity, and that for the most part the chip shortages were behind them, although they were keeping a wary eye on things. And then lo and behold, all of a sudden, this past week, about 234,000 vehicles were added that won't be able to be produced, which has brought the total to over 2 million vehicles that we've lost so far this year to for production. And most of the cuts were in North America this week. Now, last week we had heard, or last month we had heard, that Toyota was going to lose 150,000 vehicles to production in Japan during the month of June. When you see these numbers, what pops into your mind?
Now, the first thing I think of is how many cars do we sell in North America usually?
Well, in a good year, it would be somewhere between 15 and 17 million.
And we've lost 2 million now.
Yes.
So that's an incredible number when you put it together with how much we normally sell. I mean,
and you have to consider that we lost 10.5 million last year.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't seem like that's getting much better this year. I mean, we're 6 months in, so I guess technically better than last year, but it's not a ramp up. We're not replacing all those vehicles we lost last year because we know demand certainly hasn't gone down.
No, and that, to me, that is the key right there. We haven't been able to replace the vehicles that we lost last year. We're continuing to lose vehicles this year. We're now somewhere in the neighborhood of 12.5 to 13 million vehicles lost to production in the last 18 months, which is on a seasonally adjusted rate about where we're at in expected new car sales in the United States for this year. How do we ever make that number up?
That's, and that's what I wonder all the time is demand doesn't seem to be going down. Maybe with 8.6 or 9% inflation in May and continuing here this month, maybe demand will start to shrink more and then we can make up some of these numbers. But as long as demand is high, we're never going to dig out of it because you can't fill the backlog.
And it doesn't even have to be that the demand is high. It just has to be that the demand is normal.
Yeah.
If it's normal demand, if it were high demand, we'd really be screwed. Okay, but if it's just normal demand, we can't catch up. And if even if demand were to decline slightly, to be somewhat below normal, it would have to decline so much for us to ever be able to catch up quickly. And some of the things that I've read recently is that in some cases they're not predicting this to really get better until sometime in 2023.
And
And
I still lean towards 2024 at the earliest, personally, just from what I'm seeing.
and
Even with inflation, even if a recession comes, I think we're looking at a long haul still.
I agree with you. I know my son is of the belief that it'll be around 2025. I don't know that it'll take that. I mean, let's face it. The crystal ball that I've been using for the last 2.5 years has been wrong at every opportunity. It has never been right, but it just doesn't seem to me that we were able to get close enough to what we need to produce to satisfy even modest demand. And I'd like to bring up an article that from Cox Automotive. It was in Automotive News, but it's based on information from Cox Automotive that speaks about how inventory levels are flat still. And I'll take issue with part of what's in this article, and I'll explain to you the reason that I take issue. U.S. vehicle inventory stays flat at 1.13 million, which Cox says is a 35-day supply. And here's where I take issue with it, and I want to get your opinion on this, Justice. They're saying it's 1.13 million. I'm betting if I'm a gambler, and well, I am, that probably 70 to 75% of those 1.13 million vehicles are already pre-sold.
Yep.
Okay, so is it really available? It's not available inventory. It's not really an on-hand inventory. It's just inventory that's arriving that is waiting for the person who reserved it to come in and complete the paperwork and take their new vehicle home. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, that's exactly it. These are, it's flat, except that these cars were ordered 6 months ago and they're all sold already. So I mean, the data's just not catching up with the reality of the situation. It's sort of fake numbers, not on purpose. It's just, as you said, they're all pre-sold, so they're not really even in inventory.
No. And so when I see headlines like that, when I see Cox putting out information like that, and they listen, they're the alleged authorities on this stuff, but they've got to know that most of those cars are pre-sold. I mean, unless their head's buried in the sand somewhere. I mean, every manufacturer except for perhaps Stellantis will tell you that the bulk of their allocation to their dealers is already spoken for. And in many cases, it's spoken for the next 6 to 12 months. So,
Exactly. And we see that every day on the community, that people wait 3 to 12 months for their vehicle to come in. And and now Cox and other people are adding that inventory that's coming off the line into available vehicles, but they're not available.
especially the person that put the deposit on it and waited 6 months to get it, they'd scream and holler at you if somebody
Yeah.
suddenly told them, "Hey, guess what? Your car's available to somebody else." No. And so you see those numbers, or I see those numbers, and I think to myself, they're really doing a disservice because they're not painting the real picture. They're painting some fantasy picture, as to how it is they'd like to see it. And but what it really points out is even if there really were a million vehicles in inventory, that is far less than what we were used to. Pre COVID, that number would have been 4 million plus of new cars in dealer on hand inventory. Okay. Because hardly anything was reserved as an incoming unit back then, where today just about everything is reserved as an incoming unit. Um, so this just really points out as to how severe the inventory crisis is for many of the manufacturers. And you deal with community members all the time. Would you say it's more regionalized than it is nationalized? I'm sure there's some parts of the country that have cars that other parts of the country that don't.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find certain vehicles, certain OEMs available all over the place. You can even find Toyotas on lot if you search out the right part of the right state.
Hmm.
But for the most part, it's a blanket, there's no inventory. But depending on what you're looking for, you can find it on a lot somewhere.
Yes.
You just have to search really far and wide. Just don't look in California because no matter what it is, we don't have it.
Now, why is that, Justice?
I'm sure it's just population, right? We're the most populous state, and
Yeah,
we have a lot of money out here. Uh, so people are buying vehicles right and left. I know Longo down in LA, but if you want a Rav 4, you're looking at 24 months
really?
for their allocations, because that's how far they've pre-sold them, and they just don't have what's coming in, and people
And
here are just like, okay, I'll wait 24 months.
and Longo Toyota, if I'm not mistaken, is the largest Toyota dealership in the country. Are
Yes,
they not?
they are.
Yeah. So if the largest Toyota dealership or in the country has people waiting 24 months to get their RAV4, it's got to be better in other parts of the country than it would be there.
Well, and part of the reason why they have such a long wait list is they don't do any ADM, they don't force any protection packages, they don't force any of this stuff. So people are like, okay, well, that's the best deal I can get. I'll wait.
Yes.
And then they see other places and they can go, okay, well, I can get it in 3 months or even 6 weeks, but I have to pay 5,000, 10,000
Hmm.
markups and such. So, time is money, as they say.
If I remember correctly, I won't swear that I do because it's been a while since I worked for the Penske organization, but Penske organization bought Longo Toyota, and while I was still with the organization, I remember that Roger bought a shopping mall that kind of fell out of favor and lost most of its tenants, and that's where they stored a lot of the vehicles and everything else there. Because if I remember correctly, they were selling like 3,000 to 4,000 cars a month,
Yeah.
not a year, a month. Okay, and so you can only begin to imagine on a turn to earn system what their allocations had to be on a monthly basis, and I can't even begin to imagine how severely cut those allocations are in today's world.
And then, as a former salesperson, I wonder how their salespeople are getting along. Like, there's nothing that they can sell. There's no inventory on hand. So, the people who were rolling in it back in the day and doing really well, uh, they've got to be looking at other careers at this point.
It what's got to make it even worse for a place like Longo, if when they were selling 3 to 4,000 cars a month, so they were creating 3 to 4,000 customers every month, and so they were creating 40 to 50,000 customers a year. Well, those people want to come back and get another car from them, and there's nothing for them to get. I mean, they are in a, a position of disappointing a higher percentage of their customers than just about any other dealership out there.
Well, and that's just the beginning, right? Because then we also talked to, of those 3,000 a month, how many were taking them to the service center there? Well, and as you can no longer sell the vehicle in a year from now, in 2 years from now, what happens to the service center? Like, there aren't this influx of vehicles coming in anymore. So,
Yeah,
so what now?
they're not creating 3 to 4 thousand new customers for
Yeah.
the service department every month. And most people never think of it like that, or wouldn't know to think of it like that. But one of the big parts of the sales department's job is to create new potential service customers every month. And if you don't have the vehicles to sell, you can't create those customers that the service department's going to depend on as their lifeblood moving forward. It really gets ugly quickly.
And the
And
sales department, like, you know, again, going back to, I was a salesperson, so I got a good 45% of my customers because they were sitting in the sales department, sales service center, and I'd go and talk to them. I would convince them to, trade in. I'd get them into something new.
Mhm.
What do you do now? Oh, yeah, you're in the service center. See ya.
Yeah. Hey, hope you're enjoying your car, and I hope you have plans to continuing enjoying it
Yeah,
for quite some time into the future. Yeah, it's got to be frustrating. It's not. Let me phrase it this way. It's not only just frustrating for the customers. It's equally or more so frustrating for the salespeople, because there's nothing worse as a salesperson than not having whatever it is your customer might want to buy.
absolutely. I can tell you the salespeople want to sell you a vehicle. They're not holding out. They're not hiding something in the back. They want to sell you this vehicle.
It's
It's
the
how
only
we make a
reason they
living.
Yeah, it's the only reason they show up for work every
Yeah.
day. Um, I used to work with a guy who said, "I can't afford to waste a day not selling something. I can't be here for 8 to 12 hours and not accomplish anything." Um, because realistically, salespeople are just commission based,
Yep.
uh, and and I don't know what the federal minimum wage is, but it ain't a lot compared to what a salesperson can earn when they're actually selling cars. So nobody wants to be there for $10 an hour. That doesn't cut it.
No, and I don't know how it works everywhere else, but I know at my dealership they pay California minimum, but
Yeah.
so which is higher, but then they take all that back out on your commission.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So like you are really still commission only based.
Yes.
So if you're
It's
not
it's
selling, you're not earning.
it's a draw against commissions. Um, I don't know I see some things. I want to block
Yep,
that
yep,
user.
yep.
Yes. Look
Pushing
at
it right
that.
now.
Oh my God. Yeah, where do these people come from? Huh?
Yeah.
Why do people do this type of stuff? Um, anyway, I thought we'd switch gears a little bit, only because you had mentioned to me, or sent me an article about something that's going on in Korea that will impact what's going on here in regards to the chip shortage.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so let me pull that article up. Um,
Spoiler alert: the chip shortage isn't getting better.
not anytime soon, um, at least with what's going on there. So in South Korea, truckers are striking and they're targeting plants, and what's going on at the ports so that they can import and export. Um, and in Korea produces, what did you say? It was
Nine,
19%.
yeah, 19% of the world's chips.
So if suddenly a fifth of the world's chips aren't going to be available. And this started on Friday.
Yep.
So we haven't even begun to see what impact this might have on the global automobile manufacturing situations as we know it today.
Yeah, and the Korean government has taken a neutral stance on this, so they're not getting involved. They say, their hands are off and they need to be neutral in it. So the negotiations are from the suppliers and the truckers.
uh, this sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Well, and leave it to these truck drivers, brilliant as they are. They're not just saying, "Hey, we're not going to pick up your semiconductors." No, they're targeting the raw materials too, but they're not just saying they're not going to pick them up. They're loading their trucks up and then saying we're not going to deliver.
Wow.
So no one can come and snake in behind them and get it and deliver it. They get the raw materials and they're saying we're not giving it to you.
Well, that doesn't bode well for what we were hoping. Like we said earlier, last week or the week before, the loss of production was a mere 15,000 units. This week it was 232,000 units. If this situation gets worse, those numbers could skyrocket.
Well, and I don't know how many day supply of chips OEMs have on hand. So how long does it take for this to impact the industry?
Well, I know Zach and I filmed a video that hasn't dropped yet. The lead time from the time somebody places the order for a microchip to the time they get it used to run about 12 weeks. And presently it's running about 26 weeks. So if somebody were to place an order today, that 26 weeks, if this situation gets worse, that 26 weeks could become 30, 36 weeks, God knows what. So this is something that's going to continue to move the needle in the future, to where we'll just continue to see more and more shortages of these chips that we need. The lead time is just killer.
Yeah.
Which leads me to our last topic for the day. And that is an article I found this morning. I'm going to share my screen one more time if I can remember how to do this. I guess I have to share, and then I have to hit this one. Car buyers will go nearly 500 miles from their homes in order to find a used vehicle. And if I may, I would say they'd go that or more in order to find a new vehicle.
I don't know about you, Ray, but I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more just to be the man who walked 1,000 miles to get the Yugo.
You think? It's just, I mean, we have for the longest period of time on our channels suggested that if you can't find it within a small geographic area, say 75 to 100-mile radius of where you live, you need to expand how far you would look in order to get something. And for the longest time, we've also said that you have to be more flexible as far as color and trim levels are concerned. And there's a dealership that did a survey. They surveyed, I think it was 2,900 people, and more and more people are now becoming more accepting of different colors, different trim levels, different conditions of the vehicles, and the people in Alaska, believe it or not, and I would believe this from the stats that we've seen, the numbers we've seen, people in Alaska will travel the furthest. On average, during the survey, they travel up to 722 miles. Does that get them to the States, or are they looking in Canada at that point? I don't know.
I think they're looking in Canada, and I mean, I'd love to know how far apart dealerships are in Alaska. So much of it is wilderness. So
Yes.
I mean, 700 miles may just be, two dealerships down the road. I
Yeah,
don't know.
that could be. It's we have said it for the longest time, and you deal with community members daily. Have you seen, or have you helped more and more people who are willing to and accepting of having to travel elsewhere to get a vehicle?
Yeah, I think the message is getting out because we have more and more people saying, "Look, I've searched around my area, I can't find anything."
Hmm.
Especially those people in Florida. You know, I nothing I see doesn't have a $5,000, $10,000 markup. Where can I go? So we start searching across state lines more and more and more, even across the country in some cases, especially for EVs at a reasonable price. We're seeing this more and more. And then the flip side of it is we're seeing more and more dealers saying, we're not going to sell out of state. We're not
And
even going to sell out of our county.
well, and if it's a new car dealer, I can appreciate why they would say that. And some people might take offense when I say this, and please don't, because I'm not necessarily standing up for the dealer. I'm standing up for a business practice that to me makes the most sense. You are when you are awarded a dealership, a point as it's referred to in the car industry, you are given a primary market area in which you are expected to sell vehicles and you are expected to draw your customers from. And the idea is that you are going to develop a loyal, local customer base that is going to buy their car from you. They're going to bring their car back for service from you. And hopefully, if you've treated them well, and they will trade that car in to buy their next car from you. If you're selling a new car to somebody that lives 500 miles away, guess what you're not getting? You're not getting that customer as a service customer. Okay. Um, they're not going to trade their car back into you because by the time they're ready to trade, things might actually be back to normal. And maybe they'll go and shop at their local dealer. So if if you're a business that's looking to be long term, you want to sell to local customers, not customers outside of your area. So I get why there would be dealers out there that would say, "Hey, if you're not my primary marketing area, I don't want to sell you a car."
Well, and everybody's involved in that. Even the OEMs are involved in trying to get people there, right? The
Hmm.
first 3 years, they're giving out free maintenance, right? The
In a
reason they
lot of
give out
cases.
this free maintenance or oil changes and tire rotations is so you get used to the dealership and their service program and you learn to love them and then you keep coming back.
Yes,
Well, so you're going to give it out for free, but then, you're not going to get people back in. Why does anyone want to do that?
exactly. And so I completely understand why dealers don't want to sell out of market. I also understand that there are dealers that are happy to sell out of market because they're hoping to, once things get somewhat back to normal, they're hoping to have earned a larger share of incoming allocations in the future. Um, but that would be, in my mind, the only reason you would do it because you're looking to grow your future allocations. But you're really like cutting off your nose to spite your face in if you're selling the vast majority of your vehicles to somebody that's never to people that are never coming back. It just yeah,
Yeah, but and flip that on the side is you're also not doing yourself any favors by adding $5,000 markup on the vehicle.
exactly.
So people want to go elsewhere. They want to shop out of state, and now they're not going to bring their vehicle to you because first off, you've turned them off. It
Yes.
doesn't matter if you're the only Toyota dealership in town. they're going to go to their local mechanic rather than your garage because you've already turned them off. So these markups aren't helping them either.
Well, the markups are only helping in the short term, and they will come back to regret the fact that um, they they charged customers for this in the long term, because they ultimately will lose a higher percentage of those people than they would have normally. And the only if it were me and I was still running a dealership, if I had somebody that was buying a used car, I wouldn't care where they were coming from. Okay, because I don't expect somebody buying a used car to service their vehicle with me or to necessarily come back and trade it in. Um, but like I say, on a new car side, I would be selective as to who I sell cars to because I want to keep it in my primary marketing area. Believe it or not, Justice, we have killed a half an hour.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
fast.
Well, it was actually 30 minutes and 54 seconds, but and it took the normal amount of time to get there. It just felt like it went faster than normal. Excuse me. I want to thank you for being here today. I forget who my guest host is tomorrow, but we've got somebody lined up, I'm sure. Um, but thank you so much for participating. Thank you for being a good sport, putting up with me. And if I'm not mistaken, we have plans to meet up again in just a few minutes to film some videos for this
Yeah.
week. Um, and I'll need time to figure out how the hell to do that. But in the meantime, I'll be back here tomorrow with somebody at noon with more news that you can use. That's noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. We'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you again, Justice.
Thank you for having me.
My
Have a great
pleasure.